Welcome to the Deadlifts and Pizza podcast. I am your host.
I can't hold it together.
Should I talk like this the entire podcast?
Yes. You absolutely should. Except not, because I would not be able to hold it together the entire time. Nice job. Excellent intro. That was Laura's sexy voice.
Yeah. if we want to call it that.
I thought it was very sexy. We were talking last time about how Laura has such a good sexy voice. What's up? Welcome to the Deadlifts and Pizza podcast. This is Laura and I'm Jamie. What's
Welcome.
up? Welcome. Yeah, it's a little elevatory too.
My voice?
Yeah, it sounds like you could be like
mix.
Floor number 5, Department of Magical. You don't watch Harry Potter. Department of Magical Creatures, and I don't know what the departments are, but the elevator voice in Harry Potter sounds very much like that.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a computer.
Level 4, Department of Magical Creatures, and I keep saying the same thing. I can't remember what it is. Oh, I'm no Harry Potter fan. It matters, Laura. It matters.
I have no idea.
All right, let's get into it. What you got today? How are you?
Well,
Let's talk about how you
good.
are.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's been a while because last week we didn't do one because my power was out for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a while and it's nice.
It's been a while for us, but we're still on track for once a week. So everybody else is like, all the people, don't realize that it's been a while.
No, we had a huge storm here and a big tree limb fell off our tree, broke off the tree. I don't know how to say
it. Barely missed your pool though, I saw.
Yeah, it missed everything, our fence, our pool, but it hit the power line. So our power went out.
It went out? It was from that limb?
Yeah.
So it was your fault.
It was our fault.
And all of our neighbors. Wow.
Yes.
I didn't realize.
And all of our neighbors didn't have power for 3 days because of our tree. Because there was a lot of people. There was a lot of people with power out, so it took them forever to get to us. And it was like, I don't know how the power works. Wayne was saying something like that. It made I don't know what it's called, but it did something with the transformer. So it's kind of like a breaker where it you pop the breaker. So all the people around us didn't have power. Really, all they had to do was flip the switch on, and everybody would have power.
Are you kidding me?
Except us. Yeah, except us because they had to reattach it. But that's all they had to do for everyone else. It was out for 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
Which 3 days without power. I mean, when you think when you don't have power, you're like, oh, I don't have technology or lights or whatever. But it's like, no, you don't have anything. Like the refrigerator. Luckily our stove is gas, so we can light it. You just have to light it with
for American freedoms,
lighter.
Right? I mean, geez. If they made you buy an electric stove, you would have been screwed.
Yes. That's what they want to do over here.
Your food in your freezer, did it make it?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
I've eaten stuff and it seems fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You're not dead yet, so
no one's getting sick yet. Yeah.
That's crazy. I did not realize it was all your fault and it was that tree limb that did it. Did you get it out of the yard?
Some of it. We've been burning it slowly.
How do you burning it? If it's a giant tree limb, did you chop it up?
Yeah. With
an axe?
No, a chainsaw.
Like were y'all out there swinging?
No, Wayne chopped it. Or Wayne, I don't know what you want to say. With a chainsaw.
Sawed it.
Sawed it. He sawed it.
Sawed it with a chainsaw. I sawed it over yonder. Cool. Well, I'm glad that is over for you.
Yeah.
Because that's frustrating. Did you have TV for the kids?
Uh-uh.
But you had their tablets?
Yeah, but they can't hook them up to the internet or anything.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it affects everything. And then the other thing was that's making me think about how it really affects everything is when whatever happened that made all the flights, some technological thing recently. What was it that happened?
CrowdStrike. It's like a cybersecurity company, but they had some kind of update that had a bug in it or something. So all of Microsoft programs wouldn't load or something, and it affected everyone.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Like how much we rely on this stuff. And if that's what I talk about when people, I guess, like fully self-driving cars are a thing that's like eventually going to be. And I just think like, yeah, but the moment one thing breaks down, the human hasn't been taught how to drive or pay attention. So what,
right.
You know what I mean? Like that's concerning.
It is. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd be curious to see though, like I want to be, I always talk about how I want to be flash frozen at some point. I just want to be flash frozen. And then I want to be just frozen for like 300, 400 years. And then I want them to unfreeze me. And I just want to see, like, I just want to know. I just want to know what's happening in the future and then flash freeze me again. And then I'll come back another 400 years. But that's one of the things I would like to know. Like if we get all these cars that are self-driving, completely self-driving on the road, then like, am I just that old person that's like, you know, changing technology and changing times? I always think it's going to be worse, but maybe that would be obviously a negative. But maybe if we actually look at the data, we end up having like, you know, 75% less car deaths.
I bet you there'll be less accidents. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it takes the control. It takes your control away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So
crazy. All right. Well, I am going back to Korea very soon. So my trip is almost over. I don't think, is this going to be our last? Yeah, this will be our last podcast while I'm traveling.
You're going to be home next
week?
So
our whole, yes, by this time next week, because this Saturday I'm leaving, but we're stopping in Atlanta for a few days. And then we arrive back in Korea on Wednesday, but it will be Tuesday night here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the whole entire first 6 episodes of Deadlifts and Pizza have been while I've been traveling. So go me, go us.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to more regularity, that's for sure.
Definitely.
All right, let's talk fitness stuff. Let's start with how to do your first pull-up. We don't have to go into insane details, but you just finished a pull-up program, how to get to your first pull-up for our group program, the squad. It hasn't been released yet. Actually, by the time this podcast come out, I think it will be released.
It should be, I would think. Yeah.
Cool. But there's a lot of people, and I love this. I love that I'm seeing this talked about so much more online, is how to get to your first pull-up. And it's something that people have always wanted to be able to do, but I love that I'm seeing it more, because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we're shifting as a whole. Maybe it's just what I'm seeing on fitness and nutrition content, but it's starting to be talked about more, about like performance and focusing on what you can do instead of like how your body looks and rigidly trying to control that. You're nodding enthusiastically, so I think you agree.
I agree, but it's hard to know whether it's just our
our bubble,
what we hear, because if you go out into the real world of people, I don't know. I don't know if it's as
people. Right. That's a good point. Well, I like what I'm seeing nonetheless. Definitely creators that maybe used to talk about aesthetics more are talking more about this, but how to get to your first pull-up. What are some general recommendations that you would have for how to get somebody to their first pull-up?
You know what? You start.
Okay. I'm ready.
One of
the first things I think of is when people are trying to get to their first pull up, they're constantly thinking, obviously, of pulling up, like hanging from a bar and trying to pull up, or doing like an assisted pull up machine. But one of the first things I like to say is that that's only a piece of it, right? It's really, really important to make sure that your programming is including exercises that build strength in the muscles needed in order to do a pull up. And 2 of those muscles that are really, really super like responsible for getting your body up to that bar are your lats and your biceps. And a lot of people don't know how to really know how to feel their lats or activate their lats. And so that's an issue. If you don't actually know how to utilize that muscle, then no matter how strong you get everywhere else, it's going to be really hard to pull yourself up, because that's necessary. But then also like the importance of having actual strong biceps is, I've noticed, super helpful. Like that was one thing that I kind of discovered accidentally, because I was struggling. I think I was able to do pull-ups. I was never able to get beyond like 2. And then when I started training my biceps really heavy, and it was like the first time I've ever done it, I always thought of them as accessory exercise. I would do 12 to 15 at the end of every, the end of my upper body workouts or whatever.
Yeah.
I would just kind of do them until it burned a little and put them down. But when I actually started like putting heavy weight into my hands and doing that, my pull-ups improved massively. And I really think it was because of that bicep strength. So really just like overall programming in order to strengthen the muscles needed in a pull-up is very important.
That's funny because that's the first thing that I thought of when you were saying that, but I didn't know how to get there.
Oh, there you go. I gave it to you
You
then.
did it.
Yep.
Like, how do I start? How do I start talking? This is a problem for me. I would also, sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything to say.
Oh, I would also say practice. Do like whatever you can do like every day, but just go at like a lighter. So if you're, I don't know, if you're able to do 1 pull-up, maybe you do like a couple banded pull-ups or something like that. That's just an example of how to get better at them or whatever.
And doing them every day. Why is that? Isn't that overtraining, Laura?
Yes, it's overtraining. The girl who trains a full body every day.
I know, right?
Because it's a skill. So the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and the more your body is going to get used to doing that movement. But you have to do it at a lower intensity. You don't want to go to like failure every single day.
Right. So if you can only do 1 pull-up, then you wouldn't necessarily want to just do a pull-up every day because that's your max effort.
Yeah.
So do something that's like a couple steps below.
Yes.
So I can do in a row about 7 right now. Well, maybe not right now because with traveling, I was at a playground yesterday and I looked up at the monkey bars and I was like, let me just see how many I can do. And then I didn't because something happened. The kids wouldn't let me have it. I think I was like, yeah, it's my turn. And they're like, no, let me just do this real quick. And I was like, okay, it's my turn. Like, let me do this real quick. And I ended up not. But in reflection, I'm glad I didn't because it probably would have been like 3 or 4 because I've been so out of routine. But anyway, I can normally do like 7. So if I want to grease the groove and practice a little bit every day, normally what I do is I'll just hop up there a couple times a day and do 1 or 2.
Yeah.
1 or 2. And that really does something to your body and helps you actually be able to perform more when you go to train them.
Yes, exactly. Like right now,
practicing that skill is really important.
Yeah. Like right now in my programming, I want to get better at something that I have a harder time improving is bench press. So I'm bench pressing 4 days a week just to get better at it, but it's not at a very high intensity. But I just have like those extra sets in there that I wouldn't normally have. And this is similar. Yeah, you just want to
practice the form and hit all that.
Yeah.
Cool. Another thing that I think of when I think of people wanting to get better at pull-ups is I always see people on those machines, those assisted pull-up machines, and those aren't necessarily the best thing to use. And part of it isn't necessarily the machine design itself. I think that it could be a useful tool, but most people don't actually use little enough. They use too much assistance, right?
Yeah.
They use too much assistance. And so it might feel a little hard, but if you can do 10 to 12 on that thing and you could probably do 3 or 4 more, then you're not going, because pull-ups is very much, if we're thinking about strength versus hypertrophy, which is something we're going to talk about today also, pull-ups is very much a strength focus. Like if you're trying to get stronger, you're essentially trying to do as many as you can before you fail, because that is success. Like, oh, I can do 7, but I can't do 8. If you want to be able to do like as many pull-ups as you can, then you need to be training in a strength way, which is going to be like lower reps, working very hard, higher intensity. And if I see people on those assisted pull-ups machines and they're just doing 10 to 12 reps, and they're not really getting anywhere. So it could be a useful tool if we use less resistance, but also just the position it puts your body in. I don't love either, because you're not activating like your entire body in a way that's useful for an actual pull up when you're hanging from a bar loose, right? Like you're kneeling on the thing and you're kind of straight and you're not really activating your core. And so even if you get to the point where you're using hardly any assistance, once you're hanging from that bar, it's not going to translate as well.
No, that's true.
So what are some exercises you usually recommend people do that would not be the assisted pull-up machine?
I like my favorites, but these are very like my favorites are ones that are actually still kind of challenging. So you still kind of have to work up to them. But would be like a negative pull up, or some people call it an eccentric pull up, where you're focusing on the negative part, where you're going to lower yourself really, really slowly. So you're going to jump up over the bar, use something to get you up over the bar, and then you're going to lower yourself really slowly, or jumping up and then holding yourself at the top for a while, and then lower and then dropping.
And those are incredibly hard for people.
They're hard for me, like especially the negative, especially the negative pull up.
Yeah. I usually find in training clients that if clients can't do a pull up yet, then the negatives are usually very hard, almost impossible for them to do. And sometimes I prefer to use those when I'm working with somebody who maybe can already do one, and maybe one inconsistently, but I know they have the strength, and then working on that. Because otherwise it's like a floppy fish. Like you try to lower themselves down slowly, and then they're like just
but mess. It's definitely, I feel like it's one that you can improve really quickly. Like that first time you do it, you might look like a floppy fish, but it'll get better and better. And even if you can only do one really good one, like we were just saying, lower reps are better when it comes to strength. So being able to do those low reps like that is fine. Definitely. Like if you only can do like 3 of them, that's fine.
Yep.
But I think it really works, helping you learn that control. That control builds that strength to be able to do it.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
That's what I'm always working on with my kids. They're trying to pull themselves up in any exercise where I'm trying to get them doing strength training. They think getting the weight up is like success, but then they drop it down. And I'm like, slow and controlled, slow and controlled. So I'm always like yelling at them, slow and controlled, slow and controlled.
The negative is one of the most important parts of the lift. Yeah. You gotta control that.
Yep.
Some other, I do like banded ones, just not as much as those. It's a good one to get people being able to do a couple, right? To see how that feels. What do you think?
And bands, I like banded ones, but I don't like people over relying on them. I don't necessarily want someone to switch from an assisted pull-up machine to just doing banded. I would rather them do banded than an assisted pull-up machine. But even so, even with banded, there's a lot that we're missing out on in terms of like an actual pull-up. So I like to include those, but definitely need some variety in the training. So I like, we both like these inverted rows.
Yeah, definitely.
1,000,000% inverted rows.
Good place to start.
Yes. And another great thing about inverted rows, and if you don't know what an inverted row is, it's basically when you have a bar, like imagine a barbell sitting on a rack, but it's maybe like chest height. And so you can actually hang from that bar in like an inverted way at an angle, and then pull yourself up to the bar. So it's kind of like a barbell row, except you're flipping it. You're pulling yourself up to the bar. And I like these a lot too, because just like elevated push-ups, where I can have somebody that can't do a push-up at all, even on their knees, I can put them on a wall and I can have them push up against the wall. And this feels easy, but you can slowly lower yourself until the point where maybe you're at a high table, to maybe you're at a low table, to then maybe we're on like a couch, and then maybe we're on the floor, on your knees or whatever. But there's lots of angle variations that we can go so that anybody can do it. Same with an inverted row. You can have that bar really high, and you can pull from a really kind of angle where you're almost standing, and then you can slowly lower the bar and lower the intensity till you're almost parallel to the floor. And then what we can do is lift your feet up and literally make you parallel to the floor. And that is just tremendous at building that back strength that we need in order to be able to do a pull-up.
Yeah, and then you can go even further and put your feet higher, so you're like at a negative angle. So it makes it even more challenging. Yeah.
Yep. Would that, like, I have never done that.
No.
Have you ever done that?
I don't think so, actually, now that I think about it. I've done parallel, but not with my feet higher.
I would like to try that, because with a decline push-up, or a decline, you can do a decline push-up.
Yeah.
Or I'm thinking of a decline bench press. No, with a push-up, if you put your feet up. Oh yeah, it's harder. I was thinking with a decline bench press though. Have you ever done a decline bench press?
No.
They're actually easier. they're easier. So when you get, so with like a press, when we're sitting perfectly up, when we're doing vertical, so we're doing like a military or like a shoulder press, I can't do as much weight. And then the more down that comes to more like an incline press, I can increase the weight. And then when we get to a bench press, I can do obviously way more weight doing a bench press. And then when we decline that even more, I can do even more weight. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, inverted rows of any kind. I like TRX straps for inverted rows.
Yes.
You could use a barbell, but TRX straps for inverted rows are awesome. You can get TRX straps in your home. So if you don't have access to a barbell all the time, we talk about greasing the groove and doing a little bit every day. This would be a great opportunity to do that. Get TRX straps, hang them in your home, do a little on a higher incline every day. And then when you're at the gym, you can use the bar.
Yeah, and you could do the same thing with the straps too. Just bring your feet closer and you should be able to be more parallel, or you can lift your feet up onto something and do it that way.
Yeah, but we have all of that stuff programmed. I'm talking, I think every 2 weeks, the exercises that people are doing in terms of practicing. So every single day starts off with something that's pull-up focused. So obviously on the upper body days, it is upper body, right? So we're training upper body. There's a lot of exercises in there that are meant to get the strength needed for a pull-up, but there's also pull-up practice. But then even on the lower body days, there's some pull-up practice in the beginning. And that's a really important part too, is like Laura said, like practicing, but also in your training, you know, making sure that we have reserved that space for practicing and strengthening and all of that stuff. And so all that's in there. And I think every 2 weeks, the exercises that people are practicing gradually progress, right?
Yeah. It's the it's 2 weeks for the first variation, and then 3 weeks for the last two.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah.
And are we doing 2 cycles right away or 1 cycle right away?
Which just 1 cycle in there right now.
Cool. But we're going to get multiple cycles. So we got cycle 1, we're going to have cycle 2. Both cycles are going to be for getting your first pull up. And then from cycle 3 on is going to be about improving pull ups. So we could potentially have 6 months of programming just focusing on pull-ups alone, which I'm very excited about. I know our clients that are in the squad are very excited about the release of this program because there's so many people that are like, I won't say her name, but there's one person in particular who's always posting videos of just her hanging from the bar and like flopping around, and she would send it. She would send it and be like, look guys, I'm trying so hard. So I'm like, the pull-up program is coming. Hold on, hold tight. So I'm very excited about that.
And it's really good for anybody who's like even really far away from being able to do a pull-up, because it starts very basic.
Yes.
So even if you're not even close to being able to do one, this is a great program.
I mean, I think cycle 1 doesn't have a single actual pull-up in it. Maybe banded by the end?
Banded, yeah.
But that's a good thing, because usually what happens when people are like, that's it, I'm going to be able to do pull-ups, I'm going to go on this mission. The first thing they do is hop up on that bar, flop around like a fish, and then feel like a failure. And they don't know. And they're like, all right, well, this is annoying and I don't know what to do. So I'm going to go hop on the assisted pull-up machine. And then in a couple of weeks, they are, you know, decision fatigue on what to actually do. So we've taken the thinking out of it for anybody in the squad that wants to be able to do a pull-up. You're starting you from the basics. If you're already a little bit beyond the basics, then you just start at a different cycle. So it's going to be a very well-rounded program. So that being said, if that sounds interesting for all the people listening, if you want to join the squad, now's the time. We still have our introductory rates going. So it's relatively new, small group coaching program. The goal is for it to be $97 a month, which is an amazing price to get 2 coaches and amazing programs and community. But right now we're slowly going up to that price in time. So we're still at a low rate. So if you want it, now's the time. In the show notes, right, Laura, we're going to have the link to join the squad.
Sure. I will put that in the show notes.
Put that in the show notes. You can join the squad. You get both of us as your trainers. Amazing programs in there. We've already got a squat focus program. Deadlift one is coming. Nutrition resources galore. Weekly coaching from both of us. So it's a really cool place to be. Amazing group of women that all are striving for these amazing performance goals. So it's a really great space. We recommend it. Not biased at all.
We're going to add a pull-up guide too this month.
Yep. That's coming because I'm supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
That's on me, and it's July 25th. It's coming, guys.
All right.
Speaking of strength and hypertrophy, do you want to talk about strength and hypertrophy?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit last podcast. But
last week for everybody else, right?
Yeah, that's true. It is last week, I guess. But we didn't go too far in depth. We didn't have a lot of time to talk about it. So what do you want to specifically talk about? Just the difference between the two?
Yeah. So let's start with what's the difference between strength and hypertrophy? Because a lot of people know, but a lot of people really don't know. So what is the difference between strength training and hypertrophy strength training?
Like the training itself or the adaptation?
Like, what does it mean to train for strength, to train for hypertrophy?
So strength is obviously being able to lift more weight, right? Is getting closer to or increasing your 1 rep max or how much you can lift. And it's a central nervous system adaptation, whereas or neurological adaptation, whereas hypertrophy is more of a like you're growing your muscles and building your muscles. So they're a little bit different. And to train for them, you have to do it a little bit differently because it's not exactly the same.
Right. But
yeah,
they're not exactly the same. But is there crossover between the two?
Yes. A bigger muscle is going to be a stronger muscle. And if you're stronger, you're going to be able to lift more weight. So you're going to be able to build more muscle. So,
yes. So we can train for hypertrophy, which is muscle size, because that's what a lot of people want. They want their muscles to be bigger. They want them to pop. They want them to be more defined. So in that case, we want to train for hypertrophy. We want to train in a way that supports the growth of our muscles. But if you're doing that, you're also going to get stronger. But you're not going to be prioritizing necessarily like brute strength, right?
Yeah.
But you're still going to get stronger. It's just going to be a little bit slower over time, and it's not going to be as maximal as maybe you could if you were training for pure strength. And likewise, if we're training for pure strength, your muscles are going to grow, but we're not necessarily going to be prioritizing or optimizing your muscle growth, even though you're still going to get those benefits.
Yeah. So generally somewhere in the 1 to 5-ish rep range is really good for strength. On the lower end of that, even more so. And hypertrophy is going to be anywhere from like 3 reps to, like 30, as long it can go pretty high.
I think that's important to be aware of too, because what it used to be is we used to like have this idea that somewhere between, 1 and 6 was strength, and then like 6 to 15 is hypertrophy. And I'm talking reps, like repetitions of an exercise. Yeah. And then anything beyond 15 was just like strength endurance. And we know now that that's not really true. It doesn't really matter how many reps you're doing, as long as the weight you're using is heavy enough to get you pretty close to failure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So you could do 30 reps with a 5-pound dumbbell, as long as reps 25 through 30 feel extremely challenging to the point where you probably couldn't do 31 or 32 reps, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But who would want to do that? That's my question.
No.
I wouldn't want to stand there doing
8 to 12-ish.
I don't want to stand there doing 25 pointless reps, because if it takes me 25 reps to actually get to the point where it feels very challenging, then I'm going to use a heavier weight so I don't have to do as many reps to get the same benefits. But some people just really like using lighter weights. It feels better on their joints. They don't mind taking the extra time. They like the little bit of extra burn they might feel. And that's fine. But my main thing is like wanting people to be aware. Like we can optimize this for your time.
And that could be more fatiguing a little bit sometimes, doing a lot of reps compared to less reps. I mean, they're fatiguing in different ways. Like when you do the lower reps, it's more like if I do heavy deadlifts, I'm, spent in a different way than if I'm doing like high reps. It's slightly different. So you got to keep that in mind too.
Yep. Definitely.
For strength, if you're training for strength, you want to focus on big compound lifts, things like deadlifts, squats, bench press. Something like a bicep curl, you're not going to build a ton of strength just doing bicep curls. You want to focus on those big exercises because they will recruit more. You're going to recruit more muscles. You have to get your muscles to be able to work together and like all the neurons and stuff working together and all of that stuff. So working on those like big compound lifts help with that.
Also, they're just not as optimal. Like I'll see people doing deadlifts for like 12 reps and I just say why? Because since we're using so many muscles, you're not actually going to be able to have like super hypertrophic benefits from that kind of exercise. Like if we want hypertrophy and to grow specific muscle, the best thing to do is to train that specific muscle, or at least an exercise that utilizes less muscles than like a deadlift.
I think it does. I think it does. It's just that it's so freaking taxing that you can't do as much volume if you were just doing deadlifts. So it's not that it doesn't build as much muscle as saying like doing something like a hamstring curl. It's just that you could do 5 sets of hamstring curls, like 8 to 12 reps, where a deadlift, if you did that, you're like, okay, I'm done for today. I can't do anymore. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like one of the things that has helped develop my back the most is heavy deadlifts, but it hasn't been using deadlifts to try to grow my back. It's been, I'm training deadlifts for strength because that exercise is more conducive to training total body strength.
Yeah.
I wouldn't choose a deadlift if I was like, oh, I really want to grow my lats. I wouldn't like go do deadlifts in a hypertrophy range, like, 8 to 15 reps. Strength endurance, maybe I could see the benefits of doing deadlifts more often if we're talking about just the endurance of being like strength output. If that's like a goal of yours, but if we're trying to like grow our back muscles, then you probably want to pick an exercise that's going to isolate that muscle a little bit more. And then you're able to do more of it without feeling, like you said, like done for the day, right? Which deadlifts will do. You'll be done.
Yeah. It's like squats are great for your quads, but you're not going to be able to do as many squats as leg extensions. So that's why we add that in at the end to add more volume to that area without making you die.
Yes. Deceased. Now, what about, this is something that there's probably some controversy on this one, but I don't really think there should be. Can you train for strength and hypertrophy at the same time in the same program and the same training block?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's better to.
I agree.
I mean, you don't have to, I guess, but I think it is better to do it that way instead of like, let's say you just did a whole block of just hypertrophy training, no strength. Let's say you did it for like six months or something. When you go back to strength, you would have lost some of that, by the time you get back there. So I think it's important to do both at the same time.
For
sure. I've seen a lot of programs where it'll be like, this phase is strength and then this phase is whatever. And then also you kind of have to, right? If you're going to do, I mean, generally when we set up a workout, we do like the big compound lift first, right? Unless you're doing like power or something, then that's different. But like doing a big compound lift first for strength. And then the next exercise is probably another compound lift. It's probably a little bit like, it might be like a Romanian deadlift or something like that. And then and then we keep going down smaller and smaller muscles and, more isolation exercises. If you have those isolation exercises at all, you don't want to do them for like 1 to 5 reps. You want to do those in the more, in higher rep ranges, because it doesn't make as much sense to do a bicep curl for 4 reps as it would to do a deadlift.
I will say, and I'm not going to name the program, but I know you know the one I'm talking about, the very popular programming out there that is, and I don't remember which exact one it was. It doesn't matter because we're not naming it anyway, but it was like, there's a strength focused phase and a hypertrophy focused phase. And it's quite literally, you start off with compound lifts. It's still organized that way, and it's still organized with compound down isolation, but even the isolation exercises were like in the 1 to 3, 1 to 4 rep ranges. And every single exercise that I was doing was incredibly heavy. And so by the time, do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what program you're talking about. No.
It's a very popular, common one that we both know and listen to.
I think I know. I think I know what you're talking about, but no, they at the end it's like 6 to 8 reps for those things.
Well, maybe it goes in chunks. Maybe it was like the program was in chunks of like 2 or 3 weeks of this and 2 or 3 weeks of this or something like that. I don't remember how it was set, but we can talk off of this.
Yeah.
And compare notes, because 100% the bicep curls, the tricep extensions, like all of the like accessory exercises were like 1 to 4, like very heavy. And I was so tired. You're taxed by those first compound exercises. You're very taxed. And just, I didn't want to lift up a super heavy dumbbell at that point. I just didn't want to do it. But then in other phases, or maybe other programs, again, I can't remember if it was like different programs or different phases, but we can figure it out together later. It was like insanely high reps. It was like 15 to 20. And I was like taxed in a whole different way. Yeah. And I just think that there's so much benefit to varying the rep schemes within one given program. So in the beginning, I'm doing a deadlift, I'm doing a squat, and doing like 1 to 3 to 4 to 5 reps. But I want to do more. I want to lower the weight, and I want to do higher reps later on in the workout. And I think, I'm biased, but I think that's the best way to program.
Yeah, no, mixing it up like that, definitely. It doesn't, and there's certain exercises that are better for different rep ranges. So you don't want to do certain, like I said, you don't want to do bicep curls for 1 to 4 reps. It just doesn't make as much sense. And especially not if you've been doing it the entire time. Like it add a little bit of variety in there so you don't tax yourself so much. Like you said, if you're doing high reps, all high reps, that bothers me more, I think, if I do all high reps. You got to mix it up.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. Now we were talking about pull-ups earlier. I do think there's benefit in doing like a bicep curl in particular, maybe not 1 to 4, but maybe like 1 to 6 reps or something like that with a heavier weight. Because I really want to put, my biceps in a position where, they're really struggling for strength at that point. But like you kind of touched on this a second ago, you're not going to see it as much progress with that. Like with a deadlift, you can like add 2.5 pounds, you can add 5 pounds. Bicep curl, you can't. You can go the entire like training block and not, because it's such a small muscle, and not see like any improvement. So as long as it, I think the main thing is that there has to be like a reason and an intention behind the rep schemes for the different exercises. Like, what are we working towards, right? What are our goals here? And making sure that it's designed with that in mind.
Exactly. That's true. That's a good thing to think about too, because I think some people just throw stuff in there, but you have to have intention behind what you're doing, and there's a reason. Yeah.
Yes. And I will say that there are definitely like well-designed programs that are just well-rounded all around. Like there's not necessarily this super specific intention with every single, rep range or whatever. It's just well-designed. We've got compound lists, we've got varying rep schemes, and it's just meant to get somebody overall stronger and building a little bit of muscle. But once we have more specific goals, like, I want to grow this area, or I want to get stronger in this, or I want to be able to, do this, like do a pull-up. I want to be able to do a pistol squat or like 10 push-ups. Then we have to start being a little bit more specific and intentional with training design.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like in the pull-up program for the bicep curls, I did it lower reps. So it's like 6 to 8 reps. It's not going to be
There's like a
10
reason.
to 12. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So that's strength versus hypertrophy. I think we covered everything, right?
Well, we talked about strength. I don't know. We didn't talk about, we talked about it a little bit last time, about you want to make sure you get enough volume. And
for strength?
For hypertrophy. Did I say strength? I meant hypertrophy.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one we covered better than the other one. Did we cover strength better than we covered hypertrophy?
I don't know. This time, I think so.
Yeah. So hypertrophy then. Go real quick. You were going to say about volume, how important it is, because it's not as imperative. Well, actually, you could argue that it could be negative, as we discovered. I think it was last time we talked about how I was trying to compete with you, and I was going to failure on these compound exercises. That was probably keeping me back.
For strength.
Because I was like, I'm stronger than Laura. I can do this. But in hypertrophy, it's a little bit different. Volume
hypertrophy
is important.
You want to go close to failure, as close as you can get. Like, you don't need to go to failure every set, because then it's more of like, are you going to be able to recover enough for the next workout type thing? More likely to get injuries, all of that. But you want to get, within 1 to 2, maybe 3 reps shy of failure for your intensity. And then for volume, like 10 to 20 sets per per muscle group per week is usually good. And when I say that, like, you don't want to do 20 sets for every single muscle every cycle. That would be too much. Most people are going to do better at the lower end of that.
It also gives you room to grow. So if you're doing the lower end and you're seeing progress, then great. We want to stay there. But then if we start to slow progress, we have somewhere to go. We can add.
Yeah, and speaking of that, this is something I've always wanted to discuss. I don't know if we discussed it before, but I think we have a little bit, but there's been studies recently coming out that show that, because before it was like, okay, there's this optimal range of volume, and between that 10 to 20 sets, it can go up to, like, I don't know, 30 sets. Is like that is in the, your range is going to be somewhere in there. And now they've been coming out with new studies showing that there is no, like, high end. Like, the more volume you do, the more progress you make. So they would have
off.
It just keeps going. So in other words, like, if you're going to do 50 sets, you're going to get better progress than if you were only going to do 30 sets. And
wait, you're saying you do continuously get improvements the more you raise your sets?
There's been a couple of new studies coming out showing that.
So there's not a cap off.
There's not a cap off.
Interesting.
Yeah, like there was the one study, and I think it was on quads. I could be wrong. But they had one group, and they progressively did it. So it wasn't like they started out with this high volume. They progressed them up to it. And one group was like the low volume group. I don't remember the exact sets. And then there was like a medium volume group. And then the high volume group, I do remember, though, it was like 52 sets or something by the end. They had this group too. And they actually built the most muscle. So the high volume group built the most muscle. Then it was the middle, and then the lowest.
But my question is, how much more muscle?
I don't remember, but it was significant enough for them to consider it, because there has to be like a significant amount for them to say, to come up with that conclusion that the more volume equates to more muscle. But, okay, so they had each group, I don't remember this was a long time ago. I don't know when this was. I say a long time ago. This might have been almost a year ago now. It was probably like last winter sometime. So what was I saying? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
The higher training volume group.
They had them all go to failure, I believe, also. So can you imagine?
No.
They're making these people do 52 sets all the way to failure. I mean, that's insane, right?
So is that what I need to do in order to beat you in quad thickness?
Yes, exactly.
Cycle? All right.
Exactly. So my problem with this is a couple things. One, they only trained quads. So if you're doing a whole program where you're training for more than one muscle, which most likely you are, I don't see this working out the same way. I don't see you being able to recover if you're doing 52 sets of each muscle.
Of everything, right.
All the way to failure, right? I don't see that happening. So that's one problem I have with it. Two, you will not, if you're on your own, I guarantee you would not go to failure each time. The only reason they were able to do that is because somebody was there telling them, you go, push, whatever. Yeah. If you're on your own, you're not going to do that. You're going to skip half of your workout. You are not going to be able to be consistent with that at all. And that's the other problem. Well, they had a third problem. I don't remember what it is, but I just...
Well, the thing I'm thinking of right now is how... Is it really realistic? I mean, how many people are trying to absolutely maximize the amount of just like pure muscle we can add to our frame, especially women? I mean, maybe I could see a man being like, I'm just going to get these biceps as big as humanly possible. And women, we want to grow muscle, but most of us don't want to just add slabs and slabs of muscle at any cost, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to single out those that do. Respect. Most of us don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, are you going to be consistent is definitely a big one. Most people are not going to be consistent with that. You're not going to have time to do that much. Your workouts would take forever, And the other problem I would have with it is that this is like anytime they do studies, it's in a short period of time, right? Because of, well, it's expensive. So you don't want to do that for a long period of time. And to get people to stay in it, if you did it longer, more people would fall off and whatever. So in real life, because in this study, I think it was like 12 weeks. In real life, I don't know if it would work the same way past that amount of time, because you would probably more likely get injuries and things and maybe have issues with recovering over time. In a 12-week time span, it might be a little bit different. So I
wonder too how trained these people were.
This was trained individuals.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, my point I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up. But what I'm saying is I still believe 10 to 20 is good for most people. And if there's a certain muscle that you want to focus on more, put it at the higher end, but then make sure that you put some other stuff at the lower end of that.
Yeah, because you'll definitely see benefits at that. And definitely, like, if it's a more beginner lifter, and not even just, there's a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily consider themselves beginners because they've been lifting for a long time. They've been trying to use weights. Maybe they've been doing group classes or following like a YouTube program. Caroline Gervin is a popular one. Or even in the gym using dumbbells and stuff. You might not consider yourself a beginner, but if you haven't ever actually trained specifically for like progressive overload and optimized your form, made sure your form is on point, really tried to increase your strength in any specific exercises. If you've never kind of gone down that journey, then I would argue that you're still a beginner. And not to minimize like everything that you've done, but I say it as more of a positive thing, is because you can still see a ton of benefit from some of these things that we're classifying as like more beginner. Like you can do 10, the lower end of that, 10 sets per muscle group. And if you're training the right way, you're going to see a lot of benefit. And that's going to give you a lot of room to grow. As you drift in more to the intermediate lifter, you can go up to like 15 sets and 20 sets.
Yeah.
Up to 52 if you want, but you have a lot more room to grow. So people who have just kind of been using dumbbells and might not think of themselves as a beginner because they think of themselves like, oh, I've been, using weights for a while. You can still see a lot of benefits and from just implementing a couple of things. They don't have to jump to like all of this crazy stuff we're talking about. You can just implement some smart programming and a little bit more optimized rep schemes for exercises, and you would see tremendous benefit. So
definitely, totally agree. I wish I was still a beginner. It's nice. You don't have to do as much, and you still see changes. There's no reason to, because if you were a beginner and you did 52 sets, you would just be wasting, like you could only grow so much muscle. So it's not going to make a difference. You might as well start with your minimum, like
a minimum effective dose.
Yeah. The minimum effective dose and work up.
Yes, absolutely. I kind of wish I was a beginner too, because there's so much. So in order to create change in my body, whether it's strength or hypertrophy, it just takes so much intention with my diet and with my training. And I love it, right? You have to love it in order to keep doing it. But for sure.
And one last thing is I do believe that intensity matters more than volume. Volume is important, but I believe intensity is even more important. So if you do the amount of volume that you can actually keep up with that intensity. So I would rather you do less sets, but push them really close to failure, than to do more sets, but be at like an RPE of 6 or something.
Yeah. So even more argument to start at the lower end of like more 10, sets per muscle group, but make those sets proper intensity instead of just piling on exercises. I see that all the time when I see people in Facebook groups and stuff saying, oh, how does my workout look? And it's just, they're just piling exercises on there. I'd rather you do 4 or 5, literally. And like, that's not enough. If you don't think it's enough because you're not training properly, train properly and then come back and tell me that's not enough.
Yeah. Most of my programs, there's about 6 exercises per workout. Yeah. And some of those are like abs at the end, so it's like, it's not a ton. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And helping people determine how to train with proper intensity so that they can get the most out of those exercises. And then if we need to add on more from that, we can. But just giving people a ton of exercises just to feel good is not,
no,
not
exactly.
Good. Cool. Good shot. Good chat. Good shot, mate.
Good chat, Jamie.
Thank you. That's all I got. I want to wrap this up because that took a lot of time, but
sorry.
No, that was good. It was good stuff. I think this was fabulous content for people to consume.
So your other topic's too long?
No. We can talk about it. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I want to talk about the importance of community.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, somebody brought this up. I think one of our clients brought it up as something to talk about, and we just never really got to it. But I still had it on my notes, and I thought that we could expand on it a little more. I've been thinking about it because one of the things, so when I'm working with clients and I'm talking to them, obviously, about a lot of times is how to stay on track or how to get back on track after you've fallen off track and all this stuff that I've realized comes easier to me. And obviously this is my job. This has been my job for 10 years. So that's part of why it comes easier to me is because I have to be an example all the time. But I was thinking and realizing that it's not so much my job and the responsibility that comes with that. It's more so because of my job, I have built a community of people who are on the same track. So all of our clients are my community. These are people that I'm talking to every single day. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to other colleagues in the space. And that community, just this like-mindedness helps tremendously. I don't even want to say helps. I want to say is purely responsible for my ability to stay on track literally my entire life. And by stay on track my entire life, I don't mean every single day I'm working out and I am tremendously off track right now because I'm traveling. But this just complete knowledge that as soon as I'm back home and back in my routine, I'm going to be right back on it. There's not even a guess. It might take a week or so to get back into it, but there's not even a second thought. It's just so part of my lifestyle and who I am. But it's also because I'm embedded in this community of people who are striving for the same thing, and including in my household. My husband is also training and exercising and getting back on track with nutrition. He's back home already. He left before we did. And he's already working out. And he's these workouts suck, haven't been consistent, but I'm doing it anyway. And he's getting back into it. But I'm surrounded by people who are thinking the same way. And it's made me think a little bit more about, and then we talk about it with our clients. Obviously, we have our group community on WhatsApp, how important it is to have that community. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't have a ton.
Just that you agree?
I just agree. I know that chatting with you keeps me more consistent. Not just consistent. I don't know if this works with community, but it's not just consistent, but makes me push harder than I would if I was not, especially when we did our one program together. And
well, it's having a workout buddy. That's kind of what, without us intending to do that. That's why people get workout buddies to go to the gym with. It's that a little bit of friendly competition, a little accountability buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't think I would have got my deadlift to 270 if it wasn't for that.
Well, you're welcome. Then.
Yeah, it's all because of you, Jamie.
I was also thinking, obviously, about, I was talking to somebody yesterday about, she does jazzercise. And it's so much fun. But obviously it's fun, so it's easy to keep going. But another reason why she loves it so much is her community. She shows up. She's got other people that she sees every week. If she doesn't show up, those people notice. And it's a community. I mean, that's why people join things like their boot camp classes or jazzercise, or that's something that I love about Taekwondo. I have this little community and they're waiting for me and friendly competition. And we're doing push-up challenges at the end. And that community is so important. So that's what we try to recreate virtually, right? So we have our WhatsApp community. We have little challenges and boot camps throughout the year so that people can feel that little bit of friendly competition and camaraderie. We're all working towards, we're sharing our, on our app, we have this little thing that awards you with how many animals you lifted, 572 golden retrievers. And so we're sharing our, how many animals we lifted and cheering each other on, but also oh shit, she lifted 5,000 raccoons. I need to lift 6,000 raccoons, So that community is just so important. And it makes me think too about, those little adages about you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think that there's definitely a lot to that, but, and we could go down that rabbit hole, but definitely. And fitness and nutrition, or anything that you want to improve, anything that you want to be, any, goals that you have in your life. Like if you, even relating it back to smoking, 'cause I use this analogy a lot, but if you want to quit smoking, it would probably be detrimental to surround yourself with people who are always smoking, right?
Yeah.
That's going to probably be a dumpster fire. But if you were surrounded by people who didn't smoke or never smoked, then it's a lot more likely that you're going to, it's the same idea. We have clients who are like, I'm all in. I'm at the gym very consistently, but everybody I spend time with eats out every single night. Doritos, every single night. They're, never eating a vegetable. It's my family. It's my friends. It's, wherever I go. And so that's really, really hard, because that is massively influential and can determine like the path that your own goals kind of take, because how influential it is and how hard it is to stay strong in that, which is why I usually tell those people, you really need to lean into our community, because we don't want to ditch our family and our friends, and we don't want to completely remove ourselves from those situations, because we love those people and they can still be an important part of your life, but you need to build your own little community around these goals so that you also have that influence, because that is going to dictate. You can't do this alone. So if you're not leaning into this community, if you're only communicating with me as your trainer, you don't lean into this community, and you've only got me. And then when you're not talking to me, you've got this entire, community of people who are totally in a different realm that you are. It's going to be virtually impossible for you to get to where you want to go. You've got to lean into this community and build that around you.
I think that's very well said. I don't have a ton to add to it. It is nice when people can ask the community questions, and people come up sometimes with better answers than I have. And I'm like, great job.
Yeah, thank you. Or I'm not available. Sometimes I'll see the chat just like blowing up and I feel a little anxiety. So I'm like, oh my God, somebody need help. I need to go in. And then it will be somebody was like, had a question, but then everybody else pretty much. And I just can respond and go, yes, that one right there. Excellent.
And everybody's so helpful. We have the nicest community of people. They are always helpful and encouraging each other. Nobody's, you see some places where people aren't always very nice to each other. We don't have that.
I chalk that up to two things. I chalk it up to, one, the people that we have in our community gravitate towards us because of how, I hate to like toot our horns, but how real we are. Mm-hmm. And I just mean that because I don't know any other way to be. I don't think you do either. Like it's like kind of, you see what you get, and if you jive, great, but I'm not, I don't know how to put on a show like for Instagram, and you don't either.
No.
With your butt scrunch leggings. But so we get people who are that mentality as well. Like, we turn away the people who need, a little bit more, I don't know, flashy stuff. But then also I think it's kind of the age range. Like we're all women who've been through the ringer, and, we're beyond all of that. And so I think we're all very aware that we can all succeed very equally. There's not, space for only one or two superstars. Yeah. Except that there's no room for me and you to both be superstars. I need to beat you. But friendly competition. It's friendly.
She likes to make herself feel better.
I do. You should see me when I'm bowling. It's so ridiculous. I get so energized, and I'm even up in the kids' faces. I'm like chest bumping. I'm like, yeah, what? Who's gonna win? It's me. And then, dude, I actually did pretty well last time, but I'm awful. Like I'm absolutely awful. But it's just so much fun to talk a big game.
I only do if I actually feel like, if I actually
you're actually legit really good bowler.
No, I'm not. I'm not a good bowler.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
I
not at all.
Just now that you're a really good bowler.
I am not. See, I don't. I won't say I'm good at something unless I actually believe. I might trash talk though a little bit.
I saw you got the foot like the. She used to do. You don't do it anymore. Do you used to do weekly bowling for your date night with your little bowling crew?
Yeah, no, I don't think we're gonna do it this year.
But I remember I had somebody hold up the phone. I was like, I want to see you bowl. You need to take a video.
Yeah,
and you did. And you were just like, I don't know. You can't see if you're listening to podcasts, but the finesse.
I'm like a mediocre. I'm mediocre. I'm not great. I'm in the middle.
You should see me. I look good. I'm walking up, holding the ball, and then I swing it back, and then right as it reaches, you start to initiate the toss, And right as it reaches about my hip, I go in full, like my leg comes out and I just stomp like a sumo wrestler. And I have this like sumo stance and the ball goes. But for some reason, that's if I try to do anything else, I'll try to not look like an absolute idiot. But if I try to not look that way, the ball goes like haywire. But if I just lean in and do my sumo thing, like it goes straight and I perform much better. So I just do it anyway.
There's some people with some weird, like some professional bowlers throw the ball really weird. So you just gotta like, some people don't put their fingers in the ball. I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How do you even hold the ball?
There was somebody in our league. I think it was him. Maybe it wasn't him. There was somebody. I think it is though. There was somebody in our league who was probably the best bowler in the entire league who didn't put his fingers in the ball.
Weird.
Yeah.
Must have I see some of these basketball players, their fingers are so massively long that they just hold the ball as if it's like a baseball, like how I would hold a baseball. Like Wemby.
That's crazy.
Wembenyama Spurs. All right. Good chat.
All right.
See you next week.
Bye.